just like that, they buy it. They eat it up. You pander to them, you thank them. I mean, really, people, I thought you were a little bit smarter than that. I mean, it's just so easy to say the name of the city. You cheer.
Hey, Stephanie,
you cheer. I mean, just come on.
Welcome to the A Show.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the A Show with the Kings of Pro Wrestling Podcasts. It's episode 122. I am Justin, here with Meelz. Meelz, we have a special guest on the show today.
Oh, I just sure do.
I don't want to. I don't want to, even waste time with banter. This is a huge guest, a good pal of mine.
Happy birthday to me. Damn. All right.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to your birthday later. A good pal of mine, one of the most, respected wrestling journalists out there, and there are not many, trust me. Our pal from Fightful, Mr. Sean Ross Sapp, is in the building. What's up, Sean?
It's not my birthday, but I'm going to take the birthday. I'm going to pretend it's my birthday just to steal some more of Meelz' shine. That's what I'm going to do. That's what I came here to do. I said, I'm only going to do this if I can do this during his birthday week. So here we are.
And Meelz turned the big 3-0. So this is a milestone birthday.
Well, listen, I'm finally here. I don't know what to expect. Everyone's been telling me that just like, yo, even before we turn on the thing, is like, yo, take your fish oil, your joints. And I'm like, yo, why is everyone telling me that my knees and joints are doomed? Because
that's what happens.
Yeah.
I guess
glucosamine, chondroitin. I know all the supplements, man. I'm 34. Yeah. I know all the supplements.
Bro, get your and I know we're burying the lead once again, but get that prostate checked, brother.
All right. Okay, turn up. All right.
But Sean, this has been something that's been a long time coming. You and I have had a strangely intertwined checkered past in the past year and a half.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear about this.
Oh, boy.
I'm shifting in my seat. Let's hear about it.
And I don't think we've ever even spoke about this, ever said anything, but I wanted to wait till you got here to even say the story. So about a year ago, I think it was this time a year ago, Sean, actually.
Roughly, yeah.
So this time around a year ago, I was working at a pretty reputable record company in one of their urban divisions. And I just so happened to be chilling one day. And one of my coworkers came through and said, hey, we're going to do something really cool really soon. And I said, okay, cool. Next thing I know, I go on Twitter and, oh, wow, Eminem is going to be on 2K? What? He's going to be on Smackdown? I immediately rush to the DMs to ask my buddy, because I saw it on Fightful first, because, of course, I'm following, Fightful, as you should be as well. And I say, yo, Sean, what's going on? What is this? What is this? You got to stop this. And he's like, I don't reveal my sources, but it's happening. So a little down the line, and again, full disclosure, I was in my journalist mode as well, and I was like, I want to plug the leak, before it even happens. And I had literally just heard about it 10 minutes before I even see it and reported. That's how I know this man is the truth. But it had gotten me. It got me into a lot of trouble because it just so happens, Meelz, I was the only person in the building that was a wrestling fan.
And I didn't know what your job was until that day.
Yeah.
Until you were like, what's going on here? And I'm like, why do you care? That's why I asked. I'm like, what do you care? What had happened here?
So I basically went to my boss. I was like, listen, I know how, so-called wrestling journalism works. And I know that, it's about getting these things first, and it's about being on top of things first. And I know this guy's the truth because he's the type, I follow him, and he's our person that kind of reports things the way that they happen. And it was like, well, you shouldn't have done that. And, in hindsight, I shouldn't have, because it put me in the crosshairs even more so. But I knew that at that point I was trying to protect a cool project that I was going to be working on. And, it got me into like an internal investigation.
Let's be honest. It's 2K20, so it wouldn't have been cool for that long.
No, not at all. we didn't even know. Like,
I saved your reputation.
Exactly.
Oh, yeah, you actually did.
If anything, the Eminem thing would have been the coolest thing about the game at that point, looking back on it. But, they were like, how do you know Sean? And I was like, hey, we follow each other. They pulled up tweets. I don't think I've told you this. They pulled up tweets of me and you interacting. And it was like, why would you say, because I said, this is around the Roman cancer thing. I said, the only people that I really respect in this is Sean. And really that's about it. And they were like, well, why do you respect him so much? What is this? What are you guys cool? And I was like, I showed them all of our DMs, which aren't many, by the way. Yeah. And, they basically found nothing. And then I think one day I went back home to Virginia and they said, hey, we want to call you back and talk to you. And I was like, okay. And then I had gotten a new job, my current job here where I'm at now. And they were like, we're just gonna let you go. We've determined that you had something to do with it. And I was like, but there was no proof, it was the craziest thing ever. But, I have to, once again say thanks for kind of, not, I mean, you didn't really do anything, but thanks for keeping it real, the whole time, that I had nothing to do with it,
Yeah, that was the thing, because I had no idea that's what you did for a living, because quite frankly, you don't put it out there a lot. You were pretty private about that. Yeah. I don't want to say pretty private, because I don't go through every single tweet you put out, obviously, but I had never heard. And I was like, I legit was like, well, why do you care so much? And then when you told me, I was like, oh man. And then of course, Ryan Satin had the connection to Eminem's camp, and they were like, no, absolutely not. And they were mad about
mad. It was DEFCON 5 in that building. It was almost like a funeral in there that day.
And it was funny because I had all these people for weeks that were like, oh, fake news. And I'm like, bro, Dennis Dennehy said, yeah, we had a meeting. And I'm thinking, okay, Eminem's been famous for 20 years. And WWE has brought in every celebrity that has ever existed. The Kardashians have worked with WWE. And him admitting there was a meeting after 20 years and previous false rumors about them working together. That's not a coincidence, but ultimately Eminem's team ended up being in a good spot there, because that game was ass. It was so bad. And I had people that I was supposed to have a call with Dennis Dennehy, actually. He hit me up and he's like, let's have a call and let's talk about this. And then he ghosted me. And then within a few weeks, he was gone. He left.
Yeah, he left.
Because and the only reason I found that out is because I tried to hit his email back and it got a bounce back because the email didn't exist anymore. And then I look in the news, and I'm not going to pretend I'm a big Eminem news follower or anything like that. But when I want to go to my flibbity hibbity hip hop news sources, I go and I look, and Dennis Dennehy's left the company, and I was like, okay, well, I know it's unrelated, but still, that's why I got the bounce back, and it sent me down another rabbit hole of why this didn't happen. And the biggest thing that I heard from people that were close to that was that they didn't quite understand that if they just shut up about it, nobody would have even been talking about it in a day or two. And the phrase that was given to me was, today it's in the news, tomorrow they're wrapping dead fish with it. And I was like, man, that's advice so many people could take when they give too much attention to a certain thing. But yeah, that was wild, man.
Yeah. I mean, on the other side of it, it was the first time I had ever been involved in something like that. So of course, and my bosses have my back at that point too. They were like, he's a good guy. He would never, I don't leak anything. I don't say anything about anything. I don't even talk about my, it was one of the biggest things that was happening at that time, where I was like, listen, guys, this is the first time that my work life and my hobby and something that I do outside of here has ever intertwined. So imagine how I feel right now, having to be in this room telling you guys, why Roman Reigns cancer thing is something that we're talking about. I was literally talking about Roman Reigns cancer.
That's wild. That's so wild.
It became, Sean's really cocky about it and blah, blah, blah. I was like, listen, I'm not going to speak for him. That doesn't mean that I don't respect the guy. Like he got one up on us. Like that's just what it was. You know, like there's nothing you can do about it. But here's the thing, like I had nothing to do about it. So, but once again, you in a way got me out of that situation because at the time I was kind of like between whether I wanted to stay there at all anyway. And, you know, it was good for a while it lasted. And, you know, I'm just glad that it's over now. So
well,
yeah,
just make sure anytime you're not thrilled with your job, you let me know and I'll try to dig up some wrestling dirt on that company.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much.
On the other bright side, at least we got a couple listens of the A show through this whole investigation, right? Like, I'm sure people were screening the A show. It's like, no, he's talking about it here.
Yeah, this is the only time that I've ever talked about this and like how I revealed how all that unfolded. Because I mean, obviously, when I hear that all that happened, I was like, well, I'm just gonna kind of keep quiet about it now because nobody's job is worth me getting a scoop for, unless like they raped somebody, then their job is definitely worth it. But that wasn't what happened here. It wasn't even that serious. It was a soundtrack and an appearance, and they just didn't want it out. And of course, I had never dealt with really any musicians, so that was new to me as well.
Yeah, and to be fair, like from what I heard, like, it was never going to happen anyway. So like at the end of the day, it was like you guys were. They kind of use him as the fall guy in a sense. Like I shed blood for wrestling for once, but like it was just really wild how it turned out. And you know, I'm over it. But I did also remember you put out a follow-up story on it where you were like, you know, it's been confirmed that no one inside the company had anything to do with it. And I was like, yeah. I was like, there we go. But I saw it.
Yeah,
and they were like, you should sue them.
Because they didn't bother to. They said they had an agreement without having Eminem actually. I guess he said, yeah, I'd be interested in that type of thing. And then they were like, cool, it's done. And then I guess when that got put out, he was like, hope you all didn't say it was done on my behalf because, I mean, obviously they've got some power to make things happen. But ultimately, if he doesn't want to do something, he's not doing it. Yep. So, man, it's wild. Wild stuff.
He is God. He is God in that building. I'll say that much. He is literally like that's the moneymaker. So if he doesn't want to do it, it's not going to happen. So
and we didn't see him break a table over the back of a couple of redacteds. So
yeah. All right. So let's get into the show. We have a segment called No Holds Barred, Sean, where we talk about the current news and happenings around pro wrestling. And the first thing we're going to talk about today is Ruthless Aggression, the new documentary from WWE that has a lot of people in an uproar over the first two episodes because the WWE is twisting history yet again.
Yeah. I liked the second episode a lot, the John Cena episode. I enjoyed that.
Really good.
I didn't like the first episode. And ultimately, a lot of it did come down to like the line that they fed Michael Rappaport, who I like. I really like Michael Rappaport. But when you have him saying, in true McMahon fashion, he innovated to the WWE. And I'm like, man, Pandas had more to do with it than Vince McMahon did.
Yeah.
The little logo that I would see on fruit stripe gum at the top would have more to do with it. It was the World Wildlife Fund that caused all this. And there's nothing wrong with saying that. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Man, that was so weird.
I think that go ahead, Meelz. I'm sorry.
No. It's just very, very interesting, especially that you bring that up because it's like we talk about this transparency and this reality era and things like that. Like it's public knowledge of the World Wildlife Fund and everything like that. So try to like sort of perpetuate the story and things like that. The first episode, it is the most heavy, I would say, WWE propaganda. Like this is how we won. This is how we do it. It has all the players in there who are going to tell you how they won and why even though they didn't work there, why they lost. And all these other things that has all the sort of story behind it. Like you said, I did enjoy episode 2 more. I'm looking forward to a couple more episodes, especially if they're like that, especially if they're covering the women, especially if they're covering, I'm sure we'll get a Batista. I'm sure we'll get a Randy Orton. I'm sure we'll get, HLA, whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll get a whole bunch of other different things like that. But yeah, like that first episode.
It was so weird to me because like Vince McMahon has some legitimately genius moments. Even to this day, he's got some stuff that he just does exceptionally well.
Yeah.
But them trying to portray as if the lack of star power in the alliance is what caused that implosion. They had Booker T and DDP and the Dudleys and even Rob Van Dam. If Rob Van Dam was pushed to the top of that and it was like him and Austin, that's like, I don't know what more you could have asked for at that point. Like, they had some guys that could have tided things over. And then when they wore out their welcome, you had the NWO come in, and then you had like Goldberg come in and Rey Mysterio. They could have made that work for a very long time, and they fumbled it. It wasn't good. And that's a shame, because like, I love looking back at some moments from that era, because it's fun to look back on in retrospect, but they fumbled it. And that's okay. They fumble it. Sometimes that happens, but for them to make it like, oh, well, it was Sean Stasiak's fault because nobody knew who he was. Well, why is he on the show? Why'd you bring him in?
Also love that they skipped over the Invasion pay-per-view altogether. Completely skipped over it. Skipped over 2002 in its entirety. We're at like 2004 during the John Cena era when it began, and I was like, okay, it's kind of weird. But I think that once again, should people be surprised that WWE is writing their own, history book as the winners of this whole thing?
It's just different to see it because they've romanticized the Attitude Era for so long, and they're them going global, national and global, that it's weird to see them romanticizing this era that, quite frankly, they just don't talk about as much. And they have to romanticize it because now all the Attitude Era stars are, when they send them to Saudi Arabia, they're getting concussions and tearing their legs apart. They've got to make some new legends, so to speak, because they haven't really worked that hard on creating them over the last 10 years. I think this series can be very good. There's a lot of really great stuff to be covered. Like, Batista's turn was one of the best I've ever seen. Yeah. But there's still some stuff that I'm like, oh man, I don't want to see the WWE coat of paint put on this, because I feel like it will damage how I view it in retrospect.
Because they got to talk about the ratings. They have to talk about the ratings being lower, like down to at least 2005, like 3 million at that point, and that was huge from them doing 5.
Yeah. I think the little moment where Brian Gewirtz noticed that, he was like, yo, the ratings are gonna go down, kind of like to like as a preemptive to kind of say like, listen, this is how we're going to explain the ratings going down because of the whole like, oh, Superstars on different show, blah, 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 and I'm just like, bruh, this is, I get it, but I'm still like, of course, intrigued to watch this. Them going over the Ruthless Aggression era after, I mean, you talk about the 2000s where all it was ECW all the time and going over that, and then the last decade where it's like romanticizing the Attitude Era. Like, if this decade is Ruthless Aggression, I mean, I'm fine with going over it and looking back at what worked, what didn't work, and kind of taking what I know, especially because I think that's a lot of that period is also the time where like the internet wrestling community really like started to get on fire with a lot of things. Especially like outside stuff like Ring of Honor and all this stuff. I'm wondering if they'll talk about that too. I doubt it, but
no,
because that's when I discovered like alternative stuff in terms of watching stuff, like watching, at some time like HBK and God versus Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon. I was just like, what else is kind of on? And that's where I kind of got into Ring of Honor. But like, I'm interested in kind of see how it goes from here.
Yeah, I like that period. I like 2002 to like early 2004 particularly. Then it got a little bit dark. There were some bright spots here and there, but there was a lot of stuff that I liked. I mean, I like I said, I hope that I don't have like a bad retrospect on it based on how they paint it. Because here's the thing. There are going to be a whole generation of wrestling fans that are educated by these documentaries and that did not watch it. I mean, there are 18-year-olds that have no clue that any of this stuff happened, and they're going to buy every single thing that they're being sold here like it's a history book.
Next point, New Japan Pro Wrestling issued a statement last night on their upcoming shows in lieu of the coronavirus epidemic. They said a lot of things here. Obviously, if you're encouraged to wear surgical masks at all of their events, things like their meet and greets being canceled, refunds being available for tickets purchased for their March events. This is a huge deal. Not only wrestling being affected, but also tech, Apple, Sony, Nintendo, everyone is being affected by this virus. I think that, again, like, I would be, remiss to not, bring up the fact that there's Olympics happening over there this year as well, and how that will play into effect of it as well. But, how do you guys feel about this? New Japan, should they have done more? Should they be canceling their shows outright? Like, what kind of precautions should they be taking?
I feel like, so I don't think they were going to cancel their shows because businesses would just go down if they decided to do that. But I do think, they're taking, at least in terms of the precaution of sending out these things, I do think that's at least something. But I don't know if it's spreading crazy like that I would want to be in a place with a ton of people.
And it's scary, bro.
Yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I think they're doing the right thing in terms of this actual notice themselves. The only thing they could do better is cancel shows, but I really don't think that's going to happen, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if that happened. And fortunately for this, I'm in a very sparsely populated area, and I don't have to worry about it that much. But it's horrifying to hear that, especially with it feels like it went from like a few hundred cases to like 70,000 cases overnight. That's what it feels like. And,
the doctor, one of the doctors at the hospitals where it broke out at, passed away last night, I believe.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it's really serious. But obviously we'll keep you guys posted on whatever New Japan decides. But I'm glad that they did issue this statement on what's going on, and they keep their talent safe more than anything, as well as the people that attend the shows. Next up, Shelton Benjamin announced that he's resigning with the WWE. Sean, did you have any type of inkling that this was going to happen before he said it, or was it just kind of a surprise to you?
I didn't have an inkling. I didn't hear about it, but it actually didn't surprise me at all. I'm sure he's frustrated that he isn't getting used on TV a lot, but Shelton does seem very much like a guy that would be like, hey, you want to pay me mid six figures until I'm in my late 40s? Go ahead, have at it. I get to hang out while you all do that. And the guy has always said, which is frustrating to a guy like me, because people would always ask him about his physique, and he's like, mostly genetics. And I'm like, come on. So, it's not like he's got to kill himself in the gym or the ring now. Good for him. He was he was my last favorite wrestler before I got into wrestling media and kind of abandoned that. And I think that if Shelton Benjamin 2004 was around today, oh my God, I couldn't imagine them not pushing him to the moon with that skit he did with Vince McMahon and Trish Stratus.
Oh my God.
Yes.
And you look back at him and look at how he performed against every other top guy: Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, Undertaker, Triple H, Randy Orton. He would always have amazing matches with those guys. And not everybody always had amazing matches with all those guys. But he did. He's the ultimate person to have. I love that they keep calling back the Brock Lesnar connection, and good for him. I hope he makes a lot of money.
Yeah, I like when I saw it. I was like, yeah, he definitely earned that contract from what he did at the Royal Rumble, because I thought that was one of my favorite spots of that match that night. And honestly, I'm happy for anybody that's that like you said, almost in their 40s, in their late 40s, getting that extra bag for just hanging around. Shelton could easily become a producer or somebody on the creative team. He's been around forever. I'm just like, where else could you really realistically see him going at this point?
Yeah, I think it would be weird to kind of if he leaves, he's really going to be kind of like the nostalgia act on a bunch of shows. Whereas, or trying to imagine him trying to reestablish himself, in AEW or something along those lines. But, I think it's just it's safe, it's easy. They're paying people a lot more money now to stick around, especially with a lot more years.
He gets to troll Mia Yim. He gets to troll Mia Yim. So that's
I've badly wanted an angry old man OVW team with him and Randy Orton for so long. Just them being like, we didn't have to do all these flips, even though Shelton was absolutely doing 450s and stuff back then. I just think that
he was the old age Ricochet. He was the old age Ricochet.
Yeah,
Oh
he
my
was
God.
him and Brock. That was the most psychotic thing to me, watching them do shooting star presses and 450s everywhere. When one was 245 pounds and the other one was 300 pounds, I would love some sort of connection there. I mean, right now Randy Orton's in one of the hottest angles there is, but eventually he's going to be back in that spot where it's like, what more can you do with Randy Orton to make him interesting?
Right.
We haven't really seen him in anything like that.
He has probably negotiated himself a Ruthless Aggression episode all about Shelton.
Oh God, yeah, yeah. That was standard in the new Randy Orton Shelton Benjamin contracts. They get their own episode. That's got to happen.
Next point, really quick. Vince McMahon has been attending, or it's reported that he's been attending less Raw and SmackDown events. I think this should be of no surprise to anyone with the XFL doing pretty well, I'd say, for the past 2 weeks. Where do you guys think does Vince pull completely away this year? Does he? What does he do? Because I mean, in my opinion, I like what Heyman's doing with Raw, not so much what Bruce and team are doing with SmackDown. I think he should definitely be lording over that show a lot more than he is right now.
Yeah, when I had reported this, I had just kind of been poking around because it was after the quarterly call and him talking about pay-per-views being up for sale. And then I had some people reach out and say, well, it might be a lot more than that. And we were talking about the co-president firings. So I reached out to people on Raw and SmackDown, and I was told that from right before Thanksgiving until I think the February 5th SmackDown, between then he wasn't at SmackDown at all. And then on Raw, he's there about half the time. And that was very approximate, which, I mean, for us growing up, you would always hear how much of a control freak he was and how he was there all the time. But yeah, I mean, XFL's doing good. I did have a person who works for the XFL say they have just never heard his name brought up as far as any sort of stuff there. Yeah. And so I don't know what kind of input that he has there, but I'm digging the XFL so far.
Yeah.
Is the XFL a lot better than the first time? Is it a lot better than the first time?
Way better.
Okay. I don't watch football, so
I don't watch football either. I watched last week though, and I was like, oh, this ain't bad. It's not bad at all.
It was good.
Yeah, not bad at all.
But last point on No Holds Barred, I just want quick thoughts on TakeOver Portland. I thought it was a really fun show. I think the opener was really spectacular. Dakota Kai, Tegan Nox, once again, they killed it. Really love the tag team match as well. The main event obviously is getting a lot of people up in arms. They've been talking about it literally up to today about the TakeOver main event style. Meelz, I know you had a feeling about it as well, and Sean as well. What did you guys think about TakeOver as a show?
I think just in general, it's one of the best shows that I probably will not watch again. I feel like, and not necessarily that it's like not watchable over, but I think it's one of those shows, especially when you look at that NXT kind of style, and especially how they go kind of all out for NXT TakeOver. I think in general, to me, the kind of few matches that stood out, I think there was a lot piled up on this card, and not every big moment was able to have that big moment, just kind of way how the card was constructed, and also like the amount of physical damage that everyone has done to themselves on this card. I mean, the opening match was Keith Lee versus Dominik Dijakovic, and it was like
they could have ended that. They could have ended after that.
And then you get to the end, and it's a complete massacre at this point between Ciampa and Adam Cole, and it's just like, to me, kind of like the whole structure of the show, I probably wouldn't sit through that again, especially that main event. I thought that main event went long. I was just like, just end it now. Just at this point, just end it. But yeah, it was a really good show. I just probably won't watch it unless like a match pops up on YouTube again or something.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind them scaling back the same formula of the main events, even though I enjoy watching them. I think it was the Botchamania guy on Twitter who put like, man, they kick out of everything 100 times. You know that nothing's going to be a finish for the first while. I agree with that. And meanwhile, on the other end of things, I loved Lee and Dijakovic. Also, I think it's super weird that they take away people's first and last names, but they went and added a bunch of like syllables to his name. Like all you need is Dijak in all capital letters, and that guy's good to go. But I love that match. I thought it was the best match of the night. I love the Broserweight stuff. I thought that Tegan Nox and Dakota Kai had the type of match they needed to have, because I had question marks about both of them in the ring and as characters, and they look like they're just going to fit in just fine now. And
yeah,
the main
I
event,
love that storyline between those two. The brutality there. I think, you got to go cage match here. You got to go bigger when they do it again because they're 1-1. You got to have the rubber match. And I would say, like, if you want to push Dakota to that bigger heel level until Io gets back or just to have her next to Io when she does get back, you have her win that whole thing too.
Yeah, I enjoyed all that. It's just I got to see them scale back the takeover main event formula a little bit. Obviously, it works for them, but I mean, at some point, the unpredictability gets predictable, and that's what I'd like to see a little bit changed.
I think if they put a bigger, I hate to even say this, but like, the NXT champion has always been like the so-called smaller guy, the 205 and up guy. If they put that on somebody like a Dijakovic, Keith Lee, I think those matches get shorter. I think they do hit the 20-minute mark. I think that you do give them but the thing is like they have Walter on the other end, NXT UK. He's having 40-minute matches. It's like, this is just the style of takeover. And it's like saying on Twitter today, like, what you're going to get with these main events. If you're going to check out, just go ahead and check out at 9:30 because it's going to go for 40 minutes and it's going to go over. So I think people should, check their expectations, but I do agree with everybody that, like, in order to kind of create the best balance, they need to put the biggest matches on last. I think if you have a Lee and Dijakovic that's going to go 20, 25 minutes, you put that on last. If you want to coordinate the Broserweights, which I thought that moment was completely lost literally right after they won it because there was another like 40-minute match right after that. Like, you got to set expectations where you got to train the fans to be ready for anything to happen. And like you said, the unpredictability is really predictable there.
Right.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I thought in terms of the actual finish itself, I mean, the finish of the match is kind of why they did what they did. But even in terms of like putting on something last, I thought probably Bianca Belair versus Rhea, I thought that had the most stakes out of anything on that show because it had legitimate WrestleMania stakes to it. And I thought you could have hyped that up. You could have, Charlotte was going to come out anyway. They could have gave these women a moment to kind of like show off. I don't think we've had a main event. Well, actually we have Sasha versus Bayley. But we haven't had one in a quite some time, and I thought this was a perfect match because there was so much stakes on the line, and it might be the last NXT takeover before Mania where you have the women's championship on the line. So that's just my 2 cents on that. Yeah,
I do like that in some ways that they have effectively killed the bathroom break match because but the thing is, these shows also aren't as long. Like when you're dealing with like a 4 or 5 hour show, sometimes you need that. People got to take dumps, I guess, but you can take your phone with you, but not at the arena. But I mean, the thing is, if most shows were 2.5 hours, you don't have to have that break. You don't have to have an intermission. People can sit down and digest it, and no pun intended, and just move on after the show. But when the shows are 4 or 5 hours long, you do kind of have to have that rest.
Yeah.
Wow. The next Riddick Moss match, I'm going to say, hashtag people got to take dumps, I guess.
It's true. Yeah, they do. His matches aren't long enough to do that, though.
Oh, no. And they all end in roll-up. So, if you're in line at the Tampa Bay Stadium in Tampa, you're not going to have much time to use the bathroom.
That's the truth.
All right. Let's get into our Mania moment for this week. We're going to go all the way to the Staples Center. They announced that WrestleMania is going to be in LA next year, so I had to go back and go to WrestleMania 21 the last time that it was there. Let's talk about the first Money in the Bank match. It was Edge with Redacted and Chris Jericho, Christian with Tyson Tomko, Kane and Shelton Benjamin. Match went 15 minutes. It's one of the, I'd say one of the most I wanted to not only just iconic, but one of the, like a match that kind of changed everything in terms of ladder matches. You don't think of ladder matches the same after the Money in the Bank match. Of course, Edge won this. He was the first Money in the Bank match winner. What did you guys think, whether it was back then when you watched it for the first time and all the way now, like about this first Money in the Bank match and the legacy that precedes it, or actually that succeeds it?
I thought it set the tone. It was perfect for what it was because there was something missing from WrestleMania at that point to me, because the year before it felt very much like a let's get everybody on the show type of moment where you had like the two four corner tag matches, and you had the Cruiserweight Open where you had like 7 or 8 really good guys like Kidman and Mysterio and Tajiri and Ultimo Dragon. all just going out there and getting beaten in a minute and a half. And it seemed like they tried to shoehorn everybody into this show. And then the next year they're like, well, how about putting 6 people in a ladder match, and there's stakes. There's something important happening. And by the way, we're going to put former champions in here too. Like, I thought it was perfect. And the guy with the lowest profile was Shelton Benjamin. And he was the person who said, this is where the ladder match is going to be from here on out. And if you don't live up to this, you're disappointing everybody. I thought that was awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, quite honestly, especially the take about the Shelton Benjamin, because he kind of like helped redefine the athleticism in the ladder match. Moving forward, I mean, a lot of it before was just people falling off of stuff, but we had never seen someone like run up a ladder, clothesline somebody, jump off a ladder, flip over somebody, springboard onto a ladder. Like, all of this has kind of been game changing in terms of the legacy of that match and what it kind of brought. And it also kind of introduced the way that they were going to, I would say, I'm trying to define in terms of now Money in the Bank winners, right? Because in terms of the actual briefcase and gets who holds it, was it more, it wasn't like a term, like a long-term kind of thing, like a Royal Rumble win in a sense, but it was kind of like an ends to a mean in terms of a story. I don't think any of the Money in the Bank winners have gone on to like hold the title for a significant amount of time afterwards, or a memorable run post cashing in the briefcase. But
I think Edge did. Didn't Edge have it from like January to June?
Edge has never had a long run.
He won it for like 2 weeks. Remember, he won it at Revolution. Then they immediately took it off.
Royal Rumble. Yeah, at the Royal Rumble, he had it for 2 weeks. But I'm trying to like figure out, because it kind of like, I'm trying to spell out in terms of, you have these winners. You'll have the type of Edge who I think at that point when he won it, he needed in his career to kind of take it to the next level. And I think he capitalized off of it so well. And I think Punk was probably going to be on his way, whether he won it or not. But then you have people like Jack Swagger and like
Damien Sandow.
Damien Sandow, you were reading my brain. Baron Corbin, who never even got a chance to successfully cash it in. And you kind of like,
what was the story behind? Was the story behind that Cena didn't like him or something like that? That was like a really weird story about why Baron lost it.
One of the rumors, which I can't confirm, was that when WWE had a concussion specialist backstage, Baron Corbin, former NFL player, had the balls to step up and say, hey, I've got some issues with some of this stuff you guys are saying because I'm pretty well versed on this, and that it didn't go too well. But that was just a rumor. I don't know if it was true, but yeah, that didn't go well for Baron Corbin. I think stuff like that goes a long way in why people don't take him seriously these days too.
Because they joked him for that for a very long time after he lost the briefcase. But like even in the lineage of winners, like, can we all remember who was the last holders of the briefcase and the people before them?
I remember Brock, just because I thought that should have went a lot longer than it did. But yeah,
I agree. Yeah, no,
Bailey was the women's holder.
Bailey was the women's holder. Wow, didn't actually, because it was probably the same night, which is why. But then I'm always, it's always like, okay, so is it long term? You have Carmella who holds it for like a year, and it's like that's her gimmick now because she had kind of nothing else at that point. She wasn't. I starkly remember Carmella coming out, and you can hear a pin drop with the briefcase, and then with.
They do the thing now where they don't have any real plans for the winner. And they feel like, well, they've got the briefcase, so we can beat them every single week. So when they show up and they win the title, that it's surprising. But then they're like, oh, well, why doesn't anybody react? Well, because you beat them for months and months and months instead of making them look like they were a person who just beat 5 or 6 other people to win this briefcase. It's so weird sometimes.
Yeah,
I think go ahead.
And it was like, they did that with like people like Punk too, who never actually lost any of his heat or any of his popularity for getting beat that much, and it made it even bigger. But I will say that like even with these most current winners, they didn't do that this time, and I thought that actually added a level of unpredictability to the proceedings at this point, where it's like, I do agree, like Brock should have had it way longer, just because it was just funny to have him show up on both shows and troll people. But when it finally happened, a lot more legitimacy to the fact that he was someone that could just take it whenever he wanted to, and that was just the moment that he wanted to do it.
I think just in general, especially with the Money in the Bank ladder match and everything like that, when I saw this, I was just like, I'm trying to figure out whether I prefer it on the WrestleMania card or I prefer it as a pay-per-view.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm legitimately thinking, like, I think I might have towards the end started taking it for granted on the WrestleMania card anyway. Just because it became like it was too much in the same cycle. It was too much of the same thing. You kind of knew what to expect, and you still know what to expect with these Money in the Bank sort of pay-per-views and type of things like that. But I think giving it its own pay-per-view helps highlight it and spotlight it a little bit enough. It gives you something cool for the summer, at least, where there's kind of like nothing really going on between WrestleMania and SummerSlam. It gives you something to look forward to. But I don't know if I would want it back on WrestleMania if they ever decided to go back on it.
It has been, I believe it has been a decade this year since it was on a WrestleMania card, and that was when Jack Swagger won it.
Yeah, I think that if they're not going to do it there, I mean, I don't know how much cross-pollination they want to do with NXT. Also, I wonder if moving forward, the Money in the Bank will extend to NXT, if they'll have like that title be eligible, because the last Money in the Bank they were pretty vague about what titles people could challenge for. They just said women's title, men's title type of thing. So
and
I mean,
when they do a tag one as well.
Yeah, I would love to see some flexibility given there, because they have ultimate flexibility. They make their own rules. It's not like Major League Baseball. They can just change anything they want anytime they want. So I would love to see some flexibility there. But I thought that WrestleMania match, it really set the stage. It showed everybody this was worth paying attention to.
Yeah.
Right. What were you guys' real quick, your favorite Money in the Bank matches, if you can remember?
Oof.
Oh, man.
After like 20 of them, I can't really,
Yeah, they do run together, but man, I remember.
Well, the first one I have the DVD for that one. I just remember WrestleMania 21. It's so clear in my head, even down to the moment of Edge hitting Redacted with that and getting the briefcase. I remember the second one. The only reason I remember the second one and how distinct it was because I was like, Ric Flair is in this? Holy crap. He's like...
he killed himself there. Like, he was like literally going toe-to-toe with like...
I took a suplex off the ladder.
I had a WrestleMania party, and one of my friends was legitimately concerned. He was like, no, he's too old. He's too old! I remember the Smackdown one in 2011 thinking, this isn't going to be great, because... honestly, a lot of people in it were kind of mid at that point. You had Wade Barrett, Kane, Cody Rhodes, Sheamus, Sin Cara, Heath Slater, Justin Gabriel, and Daniel Bryan. And then I saw Heath Slater doing like crazy stuff, and I was like, I didn't know he could do that. Like, I had no clue he could do that. But there are some that surprised me, but there have been a few that I can't remember just off the top of my head that I thought were terrible, but very rarely does that happen, because even today they're still innovating so much. God, I can't remember if it was a ladder match or if it was a Money in the Bank I think it was just a ladder match when Kalisto did the Salida del Sol. But
that was a ladder match.
It was I think it was the title ladder match.
There you go. But yeah, I would have to say maybe that SmackDown one in 2011 surprised me the most, but I can't really put my finger on a favorite.
I would
probably have to say I think the Daniel Bryan one where he won was my favorite.
That was the same one, I think.
Yeah, 2011.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I honestly, they all blur together. Like, if you put one in front of me today, I mean, there's one with the Miz, Rey Mysterio, Jack Swagger, R-Truth, Kofi Kingston, Evan Bourne, and Alex Riley, and I'm like, yeah, I guess that happened. But like, I'll never actually, remember a lot of these matches. I kind of remember just the first few. The one where Edge went through the ladder, I thought that was where Jeff Hardy put Edge through a ladder. That was the first time I ever saw a ladder break in half.
It revolutionized the match. Now it's a regular spot.
Yeah, it's actually insane. Like, and then there was, You know what? I can't honestly remember. I can't. There's too many of them at this point. They all blend together.
I'm the only person that remembers that one. I'm the only person that remembers their favorite one. All right, real quick, let's run through these shows. Of course, Friday Night Smackdown, our favorite show to watch and review. Meelz, Sean, how'd you feel about Friday's show?
Same way I felt about Smackdown for months.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Sean, for reaffirming in my heart.
Man,
I'm not crazy.
I watch Raw on Mondays, and it ain't easy to make a good 3-hour show, and they've done it more often than not in 2020. And Smackdown, if I'm at Fox and I'm watching this show, whether I know anything about wrestling or not, I'm like, what did we buy? Like, what did we do? I know they didn't pay for 5 months of Baron Corbin versus Roman Reigns. I know they didn't do that. It is amazing to me how they can make Roman Reigns and the Usos not interesting, because those are 3 of the most interesting people that I've ever seen in that company. And they just, it's like, well, okay, well, don't pay attention to them for whatever reason. It's so
what
weird.
is the blame here? Like, are we blaming Bruce and that team for this? Are we blaming they just want to be safe? Because I always felt like they just wanted to have a safe show for Friday night on Fox. But it's like, maybe they need to kind of up the ante and make it a little bit more edgy, because it feels like I'm watching like a Saturday morning TV show sometimes.
Yeah, that's a good that's a good description of it. It really feels like, you know what? Honestly, if I watched this show on Saturday mornings in 1996, I still might be upset. I still might be like, "Come on!" I'd rather watch Buddy Landel versus Bret Hart in a match that I know Buddy Landel isn't going to win. It's just to me, the issue is they don't have any good heels that actually get booed, and I have people all the time say Baron Corbin. No, I'm sorry, that ain't it. He ain't it. Yeah. Baron Corbin in King of the Ring, that's him. He was having awesome matches, and I was like, damn. This is the guy. This is why they thought he was going to be the guy. And I can see live, because I go to shows all the time live and I hear him get booed out of the building. I can see why Vince McMahon would be on the other side of those video boards and think, goddamn, pal, he's it. I can see that. But then why doesn't he get booked like that? Yeah. The Fiend is the top heel on the show. He does not get booed. And then below that, it ain't Ziggler, it ain't Rude, it ain't Corbin. What is it, Miz and Morrison? Well, they just got beat last week too. It ain't the Revival. They're 50-50 too.
Yeah, then it's Sammy and Nakamura.
Sammy might be the most interesting one.
Yeah.
Wow. Playing the role of Meelz this week, Sean Ross Sapp. Thank you so much for just reaffirming to me that I'm not crazy and that the show is as bad sometimes as advertised.
Oh yeah, I would as far as a weekly TV show goes, I'd put it behind NXT, Raw, AEW, MLW, Impact, and
XFL. Everything.
Yeah, XFL, because I think occasionally the Undertaker's bell tolls on the XFL game, so I count that as wrestling now. It's a better wrestling show than SmackDown. I can't stand SmackDown every week.
This week's show, before we didn't even get to talk about it.
Yeah, no, go ahead, because I was about to say,
This week's show featured 3 matches, not 4, only 3. 3 matches, but I want to take 1 second to give Bayley her flowers here. I know a lot of people don't do this a lot. I know that Bayley looks at her run sheet and she has to literally want to puke every single week. But she's doing the most with the least in that women's division on SmackDown. I think she pulled out a great match with legitimately her friend, who is Carmella. Yeah. But I thought that match was great. I thought the Lacey Evans match that they did a month ago on the show was really good until they did it over again on Royal Rumble. I think every single week Bayley is trying to bring her A game, and I think she's to me, improving as a heel week by week. And I think that, it just shows that once you give them the time to build on this character, that they actually will succeed. So this week, I want to give Bayley her flowers. I think she's the shining star of SmackDown.
Yeah, I agree. I thought that match ruled. And I think Carmella has been actually good for longer than people realize. If people go back and watch, if they go back and watch when Charlotte had her return match after she had some work done, I think it was 2 years ago, she was struggling.
I remember that one,
Yeah, she struggled through that match. And Carmella like really all that work that she had put in as a champion before that paid off in that match, because I thought she carried Charlotte through that match. And I had people that were like, oh, well, where are all the great Carmella matches since then? And I'm thinking, that wasn't her role. Her role was to hang out with R-Truth, chase the 24/7 title, and do that. And then
She loved it.
Yeah, and she was awesome. I interviewed her in R-Truth, and she said that she loves that stuff because a lot of people get pigeonholed into one thing, and they only get to work 15-minute matches, or they only get to work 2-minute matches. She gets to do a little bit of everything, and I thought her and Bayley rocked it. I do wish more story was told individually with them. I do wish that the week before, Bayley would have cost Naomi the match to give her a little bit more of a reason. I do wish that they could have. It seemed like they rushed the story, and that's frustrating. But this match ruled, and Bayley just keeps getting better too.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. In terms of just the shining lights of the show, Bayley versus Carmella, and you're right. I think Carmella has been has been better for a lot longer than people think. And I think just before the whole, even including in that Becky program, including that lead up to SummerSlam where they did the Becky Carmella Charlotte thing, I thought she was putting in a lot of effort and a lot of great, just having these great matches with Charlotte, with Becky and things like that, and holding the championship, and you knew it was her last days. Like you knew it was coming to an end pretty soon, but she was still putting in the effort. And even on the other side of that championship loss, like she's still doing the things that she needs to do. She's someone who's genuinely improved on the show. And Bayley, I think this run for Bayley, it is also like echoing her NXT title run where a lot of the women left. The other 4 horsewomen left. So like, where are you going from that? And she's having matches with Eva Marie, and she's having matches with Carmella and Alexa Bliss, and Nia Jax, all these other things. And it's like these girls that, aren't putting on these spectacular matches that they have with the 4 horsewomen, but they're having great matches nonetheless. And I think that's kind of what Bayley's legacy will be at the end of the day. And, she's improving as a heel. I still don't think of her as, to me,
the top heel.
Yeah, because she's just not. I don't believe it fully. But she's doing really, really good. I do believe she has that snarky side in her, because I generally felt like she's felt like this for years. And all
you
that
see it coming out on social media now too. And I love it. Where they're like, "Why aren't you doing a Q&A?" And she's like, or a meet and greet, and she goes, "Because I don't want to meet you."
And it's like it's the funniest shit ever, man. But it's just really good. I think that was kind of like the shining light of SmackDown, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and maybe cowbell, maybe.
Yeah, that too. That was the best thing they've done with that feud thus far.
Tandem. Yeah. The Otis segment. I've always said Bruce is really good at pre-tapes, and this is more proof of this. The Otis, Mandy, Dolph Ziggler segments I thought were to me. I know, Meelz, you were like, if this doesn't hit, I'm cutting a promo. So it must have hit really well for you, because you're not cutting a promo on it right now. But I thought it was another enjoyable part of SmackDown on Friday.
I thought it was. I don't know. There's some part of me that thought it was like done by like an amateur, in my opinion, in terms of just like the cuts and everything. So it's like
when he dropped the flowers, that was artistic.
No, it wasn't. I thought it was artistic as that Simpson episode where they made all those short films. But to me, I was just like, huh. But you know what? I think they've wanted to bring Dolph Ziggler into this for a very long time. I'm sure we'll get Ziggler and Rude versus these guys, and it'll be a great match, and we'll go into Mania, and then something will happen.
They'll be in the Andre. Listen, they'll be in the Andre.
No, okay, don't put that on them. Don't put that on them. But Otis, I mean, I would have liked in this instant, and here's kind of what we're at this point. We're telling a kind of story. Tell a significant part of the story. This has been something that's been built up for 2 weeks. This isn't something that, in my opinion, should have been just like, I'm getting ready, and he's getting ready in the backstage locker room for a date somewhere else. and he's just like, he's sweating and everything. I thought this was an opportunity to tell a significant part of the story. I think if they had more ideas for it, it should have closed the show. I mean, quite honestly. But, That's all I kind of wish for. It was more. I wish, even if we built up to the Dolph Ziggler thing, have it be a significant part of the story. Give it a couple more minutes. Give it a couple more pre-tapes. Add a little bit more depth to it instead of like, oh, Dolph
they got
Ziggler.
2 hours, Meelz. They only got 2 hours. You got to get to the. You got to get to the news.
Listen, fashion file it up. Fashion file it up. Come on.
Real quick before we get off SmackDown, Daniel Bryan and Roman, I guess they're not going to Saudi Arabia, so they're getting the shit end of the stick here as far as their matches. Where's Daniel going for WrestleMania? I'd always figured that he was going to get Taker, but that seems not to be the case now, as we'll talk about on Raw. What is Daniel Bryan going to get? Is he going to get Sheamus finally?
Maybe he eliminates Otis from the Andre.
Oh, God.
Could you imagine?
Oh, the internet is going to go ablaze when Daniel Bryan makes the Andre a 5-star classic.
Oh, how about this?
That's what I'm saying, right?
How about this? Sheamus eliminates Bryan from the Andre.
Oh my God.
And we just and they try to drum up that because they think that's what we want to see. They think that's the history we want to build off of. That way in 20 years when they do the reality era documentary, they can talk about the Sheamus Daniel Bryan feud that lasted 10 years.
Oh my God.
Monday Night Raw. I thought of all of the shows they've done in 2020, this one was by far the weakest. I'm still able to get through these 3 hours every week though, which is incredible. I looked up and it was like 9:50, and I was like, wow, I haven't really lost interest in this show yet. But I do feel as though there were less home run segments and really just a couple that really resonated with me after I saw them air. But the one that everyone's talking about is Randy Orton beating Matt Hardy's ass for 20 minutes and then going to commercial. How'd you guys feel about that?
So I had something that I actually reported on Fightful Select right before this. They were supposed to do a match, and Vince changed it Monday, like the day of, because they had announced that no holds barred match. And I think that would have been a bad idea. I think Vince was right here. But really, they just shouldn't have brought Matt back. Like, he got rode off perfect last week.
Yeah.
Also, I do think it's kind of funny that he is never on TV and he comes back and he's in the hottest angle of the show 2 weeks running. But I thought
they read his piece.
Yeah. And he tried to make sense of this on his own and his own social media stuff.
Because that's what he does.
That's what he does. He likes stuff to make sense. And I'll say this, Raw has been, I think Raw has been very good to awesome in 2020. This, I agree. I think it was the weakest Raw. But again, I wasn't like, oh my God, I got to turn off this show like I was last year through a lot of it. Mm-hmm. And this was, I thought, the best thing on the show, even though we saw the same thing last week.
Yeah, I said last week, I was like, they're going to get real disrespectful with writing him off next week. And they did. By literally, like, Randy killed him. And I think that if he never showed up in WWE, they could put that in the documentary that Randy Orton literally killed him on TV and he never showed up again. And that's the WWE truth. Speaking of more truth, AJ Styles shows up on the show. He says that it is an undisputed truth that he's the best in the universe. So we are setting up for some gongs here. What did you guys think about this segment with AJ Styles kind of setting up the storyline with The Undertaker?
This wasn't for the Tariq Memorial Trophy of Excellence. This wasn't for one of those.
I feel like he's gonna win.
I mean, he's got to win it. He's got to win that now.
Yeah. I'm cool with this. I think they can have a good 7-8 minute match if they keep it that way. I mean, just in my head, between their like signature and go-to moves, I can think of like 6-7 minutes that would be good at a really high pace. So if I can think of that, I'm sure that those two guys can think of something way better. And I get the feeling WWE kind of knows the drill now. Let's not put Undertaker in there with guys who give themselves concussions before the match and people that can't pick him up or anything like that. He had that awesome tag match last year that I loved. And I have no doubts that him and AJ are going to have a good match for what they can do. I think this is a good idea. Phenom versus phenomenal writes itself.
Exactly. You're the first half of it, and then that's what it is. It's like you can't get phenomenal without Phenom. So, I mean, I'm writing it for you, Paul. I'm writing it for you. Seth Rollins had a spin on Monday. It was hyped up early this week, and I've dug parts of this sermon. I think Seth hasn't completely bought into this character. And I make the comparison of CM Punk and the Straight Edge Society gimmick, where he had the voice that he had during that. Like, he changed his whole inflection and everything. With Seth, like, he comes down to the ring, he's doing the whole Messiah thing, he's touching hands and everything, but then he starts talking, and it's regular Seth. And that's what took me out of that whole segment.
I think he needs to be the meme Seth, the evil laugh type of thing that people have embraced from him. And I honestly, I fear Drew McIntyre is going a little bit down the babyface Seth Rollins road with come on guys, hey all you guys, I'm doing this for you guys type of stuff. And man, we don't buy it. We watch Seth Rollins stomp a dude's face into cinder blocks and like turn on his best friends and all this stuff. Like, I think they downplay how amazing some of these people are sometimes. And it's weird because they want everybody to be superstars, but then they want them to be an everyman too. And it's like, there has to be either a balance or something that goes way beyond that. I look at Seth Rollins and I'm like, man, this is the guy that tore his ACL and still power bombed Kane with his knee in shreds. Like, he's interesting. There's stuff about him that we probably don't know. And
even on the other side of that, he's someone that people hate as well off the show. And this character is a direct response to that. Like, the one thing I do love that they keep putting in his promos is that I thank you for letting me be the man that I was supposed to be. Because he's becoming the person that they told him to be, and they hate him for it. And I think, again, I'm also like, they're actually booing Seth, and I thought that he would turn to a heel and people would love him. But I do love that he's maintained the fact that he's a hated character on the show, and I think that's something that's very underrated about him, is that they made him annoying, and by proxy, they actually made him a better heel and someone that people will boo regardless of what he does on screen. And I think that the actual sermon worked in that it was really long, rambling. That's what you have to have, is that type of heel. But the voice, and I just feel like he hasn't bought into the like, I know this sounds blasphemous for saying, but he hasn't bought into the blasphemous parts of what he is yet, where he has to be the televangelist type person.
You know, I think a large part of him being booed is the fact that he's not wrestling, which is a large part of why people end up cheering Seth Rollins. Is because the man goes all out, and you literally see him. He doesn't. I mean, there's definitely a heel style that he has, but he still balls to the wall. He's still top rope superplex into a Falcon Arrow. He still will hit you with 3 suicide dives and things like that, or planches. He's still that kind of guy. And I think for the main fact that he hasn't wrestled, and you've able to have to focus on the character as opposed to like what he, instead of like work rate or wherever people were trying to go for with him, is a large part of why I think people are booing him, because now you're into like the Twitter personality and the personality that everyone kind of hated when, you know, he was established.
And I think it plays off of WWE's own booking sometimes, where he says that basically I can't remember what term he used, but the deniers, the people that go against what he's doing, they're going to force to go his way. Because I mean, that's kind of what WWE does with baby faces a lot of times. They're like, you don't like it? Too bad. You're going to learn to like it. And I do enjoy him taking that approach.
He tried to literally murder Kevin Owens at the end of the show.
Well, I don't know. I guess it was like implied that he was going to murder him. I thought he was like, I'm going to crucify you. And I thought they were going to bring down the giant symbol. Remember the symbols from back in 1999 where I got to see where those are, because they had the Undertaker one and the Brahma Bull one that they strapped him to. And I'm like, what if Seth is going to look like? A giant ass or something? Like, what the hell is this going to go around?
But before that happens, the Street Profits jump in and, listen, man, I know a lot of people. Well, I don't hear a lot of people complaining about it, but I love the role that they play as kind of guys that are on the outskirts doing their own thing, and they feel as though they're literally 2 homies, like just sitting in the back, and they just come out whenever they please. Like, I love the way
feel like they are. They generally are.
And I would love to see more dominant wins from them, like we saw against Moss and Raleigh. Like, because I mean, they had them lose a bunch of tag title matches in a very short amount of time. And it's like, man, show me why these guys are so good and why they feel like they can do that, because you don't have to do a lot to make these guys interesting or likable. They're already. I mean, I know Montez gets a lot of the credit, but Angelo Dawkins is awesome too. Like,
he's a great straight man. He's a great straight man.
He's awesome. And you don't, like I said, there's not a lot of work that needs to be done there. You just have to put them in situations where they'll look even better.
Yeah, for sure. So they have this tag title match in Saudi Arabia in another week against Rollins and Buddy. I think they're going to tear it up. I think they're really, really going to do a great job. I think Montez, once again, he's somebody that you got to keep your eye on, because every match he gets better. And I think that he's going to be somebody that, you know, I don't want to see them break up, but he's going to be somebody that could be like on that Kofi train of just all around beloved character on the show, period, pretty soon. We got a Becky Lynch promo where she threw out like $100 in ones, and we got Shayna Baszler saying shit on television. How did they get past this?
Oh man,
say shit on television. I don't know, man. Like, it was crazy. First of all, they showed that video promo before of her like biting her neck, and did you see like they edited in like a huge crunch in it? Like, and I was just like, what the hell is this?
Did
like,
you ever watch Lucha Underground where they would edit in like a big snap sound every time they kick, no matter how no matter how hard or not? So now every time I see Pentagon kick somebody and it doesn't make that sound, I'm like, pussy. I'm like, what? Like, that hard? But like, they add stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, why did they do that?
Oh my god, the Shayna shit thing.
That was surprising.
Well, before we even get to that, she's in the Elimination Chamber. I even forgot to put that in the whole bar. They announced it on the wrap yesterday. It's Shayna Baszler, Asuka, Sarah Logan, Liv Morgan, Ruby Riott, and I feel like I'm missing one more person. Am I missing one more person? Who's the sixth?
Awesome.
Natty. They're going to be in the Elimination Chamber, and whoever wins, they face Becky. I know people get mad when they do these things where it's obvious who the winner is going to be, but I think you take it into the account that the match will probably be really good, and we're going to get to see Asuka and Shayna, mix it up for the first time ever in this match. I think that it's going to be great, even if we already knew who the winner is going to be, right?
Yeah, I wish they would have done qualifying matches. I know they don't have a ton of women on the roster, but I put on Twitter yesterday, like, they brought back the Headbangers in 2016. They could bring back Caitlyn and say she's trying to get into the Elimination Chamber and stuff like that. They got a couple of Australian women that are sitting on their asses, not doing much right now. Lana and Zelina can lose matches. It wouldn't hurt them a little bit. I mean, they could have done Liv Morgan versus Lana 3 and had Liv crush her again. Just make me care about these matches, or at least make me think that you want me to care about the matches.
Yeah.
But
because I think even the Liv Morgan promo from later, and I'm really, I kind of look at Liv and it's like, I know she has a bunch of fans, but it's like she has really kind of yet to wow me in any considerable sense in ring. And I'm waiting for that moment. And that promo didn't really instill a lot of confidence. And I know it's the writing, and I know it's probably the way it was written, but it was like, I don't know about this. Like, I feel like Ruby, her underrated quality is actually being able to dictate the type of bullshit they make her say every week. And she does it really well. And not everyone can do that. And I think if Liv can kind of like get coached by her a little bit, her promos would end up being so much better to me.
I don't know. In terms of Liv, first of all, in terms of this match, I wish this is once again one of those situations where I feel like I wish they weren't telegraphing it so hard, because Elimination Chamber match, it's a minimum 25-minute match that you kind of know what the result is kind of going to be. So I wish they wouldn't telegraph it so hard. I would have rather Shayna Baszler come out as a surprise entrant, then she maybe bites the neck the night after she wins, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
But not telegraph it so damn hard, because you kind of know who's going to win. I kind of like the Riot Squad kind of thing that they got going on here with those three. I know Natty in the match. I forgot who else is in this match.
Sarah fucking Logan's in the match. Like, come on,
Sarah Logan.
If they wouldn't have jobbed her out so hard over the last few months, even if she just disappeared and wasn't on the show, I think that'd be better than the fact that she's been beaten so much, because
she's got to hit that 3 eliminations in this match.
Yeah, because now it's like, well, why isn't Kyrie in it? And that's what a lot of people said. And Kyrie beat Natty last night.
Yeah.
That was a hilarious match. That was a hilarious match, by the way. I think Kyrie is, I know people don't like her as a heel, but I think she's really good as a heel. She's hilarious.
She's great.
Really quick, last 2 points. Aleister beat Rowan's winning streak. But what is next for Aleister? I asked this last night. People were like, the Andre Battle Royal, and I was like, I really don't think they're going to put him in that match, because then he'd have to win it. And then that you with that match is that if you win it, you have nothing going on for yourself. So what do you guys think is going for Aleister Black here? He's not going to get Taker, and that's clear. I think the U.S. title that picture might be kind of set at this point. He's not going to go after the world title. What the hell are they doing with Aleister Black?
I wouldn't hate the Battle Royal, because he keeps asking for people to fight him and he can't find anybody. So
that's what I was thinking as well. I mean, that is like well thought out as that, but I was really thought out of just like, okay, maybe the Battle Royal is kind of where he like wins, etches his name in history. They got a little achievement that they could put by his name every time he comes out. You know, Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal winner that they do with everybody else, except Cesaro, because you're not supposed to remember Cesaro won it. But yeah, I mean, at least that to kind of hold him over for the eventual next step.
I would like to see them act like this means something again. Like, tell me a reason to care. And for Aleister Black, all he's got to do is say, they asked me who I wanted to fight at WrestleMania, and I said I wanted to fight everybody, so I'm in this match. You should make it seem like he wants to be in this match. Like it's a reward for him to be able to be in this match. I would love that. Have him
come out first.
Yeah.
So that everyone has to face him. That actually is a great idea, because I think, I don't think he's going for the title, off the rip. But I think that after Drew, or if Brock retains, I think that's the first guy in line after Mania.
Yeah, I agree.
Last point here. Angel Garza. He's got a rocket strapped on him, huh?
Yeah, I love Angel Garza. My God. The only thing that I wish could have been better for him, I wish when he ripped off his pants the first time on Raw that he didn't have the little snag, because I could just imagine Vince McMahon having a conniption fit of joy. Oh my God, pal! Those pants went flying. Oh, he would love that. I had, and I can't say who it is, but I had a top name in wrestling message me during his debut match, and they're like, even if he was told not to tear off the pants, if he doesn't, he's a moron. Yeah. Because it's so important, and because that person knows that like Vince McMahon would love that, and there's a solid chance that Vince McMahon has never seen him do that before. Right. So I good for him. Honestly, with all the time they've devoted to Humberto Carrillo, I don't care.
I don't buy him at all. I think if he wasn't in the U.S. title match, and I was just going to ask that, should it be Andrade versus Angel for the title, or with? I
think Humberto's going to be in it nonetheless. I think I think you do the Fatal 4-Way, him, Mysterio, because it seems like just everybody who's in the picture, and I think everyone has sort of general. I don't know if they have a general gripe with one another, but they've all been intermingled for the last like 3 months or so. I say put them Fatal 4-Way, put them on.
Oh, well, it's WWE, and they're the same ethnicity, so they're in the same program. And the sad thing is, and I hate to say it, but we all know that if Angel Garza was 6'2", he was getting that call up before Humberto Carrillo was. They called up Carrillo because of his height and his dimples. That's why. His work he's very athletic, and he can be very good. But like I was watching him do arm drags to people who were sitting on their ass, and I'm like, that's not how arm drags work. I've never seen a person do that. I think the best case scenario for them would be to team Garza and Carrillo somehow, and hope that by osmosis Carrillo catches hope that they catch whatever Garza has.
He's blank. Every promo he's blank. Like even Garza,
no soul, bro.
Like Garza, who can't even speak English that well, he gets over just the fact that he's really handsome. The body language with Garza is what wins with me a lot of the time when he does promos. Even in the ring, it's like I was looking at him during his debut, and even on Monday, like why doesn't he call first. Like I never got it. Why Humberto was called up first, and like I get why they took him from NXT that quick because he's resonating and people are loving him, and I think that he's gonna be like a lot of people are giving him the next title, the next Ray, the next Eddie. I think for him being the first Angel Garza, he's gonna go places that we've probably never seen. But will this overshadow Andrade, who was a hell of a worker on his own? Because I think this 30 days of him sitting down is allowing Angel to kind of take his spot. Yeah, and the Andrade's saving grace is that title that he has, and it's weird to me they didn't just switch the title off of him before.
Yep.
But
said that.
But man, Angel Garza is so good, and I don't feel like my time is being wasted watching him now. I don't feel like they're forcing something with that. I feel like they recognize they screwed up and they're trying to rectify it, and I respect that a lot. Yeah, absolutely. That was Raw in my notes. Anything you guys want to speak on before we wrap this thing up? Drew crushing MVP was good. I like that. Yeah, I like the Paul Heyman angle there too, where again, like if Paul, I feel like if Paul's there, I'm out. He's there every week. I feel like he should be doing that when Brock isn't there. I think he added a little bit to Drew's kind of like they are starting to get a little bit samey, his babyface promos. I think he should go back to saying less, honestly, and just letting the work speak for itself. But I did like the wrinkle with Heyman, and MVP is such a great talker, and that's one thing I forgot about. Amazing.
My final thoughts: Kevin Owens needs to pin somebody.
Yeah.
Stat.
Yeah.
Stat.
They get away with a lot of it. They get away with a lot of it because of that stunner, and it seems like a victory for him when he hits the stunner because every wrestling fan is conditioned to thinking that's the last laugh, but he's got to win.
He's got to win.
Do they stretch the Seth program all the way out to Mania? Because that's the big card that they're holding is that they're going to announce the singles match. But I think they got to wait to do it till Mania at this point. I mean, it's kind of amazing that modern day WWE has a feud that has not had a singles match yet, and it's been almost 4 months since they started feuding.
And that's what I want. I want it to feel special the first time they connect with each other. When I watch Conor McGregor and Jose Aldo, like you thought they might fight before the fight, but they didn't fight before the fight.
Right.
And then when they got in there, I was like, man, this is huge. This is awesome. And I think that's something that's missing in WWE is that we see the match happen. Like I don't want to see AOP and Viking Raiders now. I've seen it. I've seen them face each other a bunch, and I thought that was a surefire Mania match. But Rollins and Owens, I gotta see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Sean. Once again, this has been a spectacular show. It's been a long time coming, but I think that a lot of people listen today will say, you know what, you fit right in the A show. You are the Meelz of the show now. We can replace 30-year-old Meelz. We have 34-year-old.
Welcome to your 30s. Oh my God. Plug everything that you got, my man.
What do you want to plug, Sean?
Yeah, Fightful.com. That's where all my stuff is. We cover MMA, boxing, pro wrestling. If you just like wrestling, check out FightfulWrestling.com. If you want to support what we're doing directly, we have FightfulSelect.com. That's our premium service where we post exclusive news. We have dozens of extra podcasts. Right now, it's a Patreon platform, but we are working on integrating that into the actual Fightful.com. So, yeah, that's the main thing. Just check that out, and you can find all of our stuff over at Fightful.com.
All right. And as always, you can follow us at OGJohnny5 and at Meelz TV on Twitter. You can also follow us at RNC Radio Live, where we have the latest and greatest of everything we do. We do so much, from movies to anime to wrestling to just anything, you name it. We have it all on that channel in one handy dandy little Twitter account. So until next week, we'll have another Mania moment, and we'll have. Are we gonna predict the Saudi Arabia show, Meelz? Are we gonna watch that, or are we just gonna? What are we gonna do?
We'll call it in the ring.
All right. So until next week, you guys are listening, and we'll see you next week on the A Show.
Happy Rusev Day.